And Miranda, we're on the website?
Yeah, we're live everywhere.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, welcome everyone. My name is David Imamura. I'm the chair of the New York State Independent Redistricting Commission. I want to welcome everyone to our listening session, our final listening session for the Fingers Lakes and Western New York. First, I want to acknowledge my fellow commissioners who are joining us today. We have former Minority Leader and proud New Yorker Charlie Nesbitt from Western New York, Will Stevens, and Commissioner Elaine Fraser. Second, I want to thank the men and women who are behind the curtain, who are making all of this work technologically. Co-Executive Director Karen Blatt, Deputy Co-Executive Director Isis McIntosh Green, Director of Public Engagement Asia Badi, Assistant Director of Engagement Miranda Goodwin Robb, Data Manager Jonathan Rivas, Co-Executive Director Douglas Bregel, Deputy Co-Executive Director Kevin Murphy, Assistant Director of Engagement Danielle Futia, and Data Manager David Schaefer. Today, we are embarking on New York's first ever public redistricting process, where average New Yorkers have the opportunity to weigh in on their district lines. In terms of our calendar, this is our final regional input session. We have our final session for the entire state is going to be this Sunday, where it's kind of a catch-all for everyone. As many of you know, today the Census Bureau released New York's redistricting census data, which we will use to draft our initial set of lines. We will release those lines by September 15th, or as soon as practicable, as close to that. 1 month later, we will have another round of sessions asking for the public's views on our proposed lines. We will then take the public's input, modify the lines as necessary, and submit the lines to the legislature in January. For those, as I talked about, for those of you who are unable to sign up for today's session, we'll be having a catch-all session for the entire state this Sunday at 3 p.m. prior to our beginning to draw lines. So if you did not have time to prepare for today's session, please join us then. Just so you know, our website will be down for maintenance this weekend. So to watch Sunday's hearing live, go to our Facebook page. If you wish to testify this Sunday, please sign up by Friday at 5 p.m. If you miss that deadline, email Asia Badi with the commission at BADIA@nyirc.gov, or email Danielle Futia at FutiaDFUTIAD@nyirc.gov. So again, we will be having our hearing for the entire state this Sunday, but if you wish to speak, please register on our website by 5 p.m. tomorrow. If you do not register by that time, email Asia Badi at BADIA@nyirc.gov, or Danielle Futia, FUTIAD@nyirc.gov. In addition, if you are unable to make this Sunday's hearing, or if you wish to submit additional materials to the commission, we are actively accepting written submissions. So please submit anything you think that the commission would find helpful, be it pictures, maps, letters, whatever you think will help us determine how best to represent your communities as we draw maps. Some logistical points. Each speaker will be allocated 3 minutes. We have a timer on the Zoom, which will indicate how much time every person has remaining. We will mute speakers if they exceed their time. Commissioners will not be asking questions. All of this session, as well as all written materials submitted to the commission, will be posted on our website at nyirc.gov. As we've discussed, we are asking the public to provide information on 2 things before we start putting pen to paper and drawing lines. First, we are asking for information on your communities as they relate to redistricting. Tell us about your neighborhood, your religious group, your school district, your village, and why as a community you should be kept together for redistricting. This is what is known in redistricting circles as a community of interest, and is what we are interested in today. Second, we are also asking for your input on how your present districts can be improved. Again, I want to thank everyone involved, but especially you, the members of the public, for making your voices heard. This is the first time that everyday New Yorkers will be able to provide input on the lines, and I think I speak for all of my fellow commissioners when I say we intend to make the most of it. This process will only work because of your help. So thank you so much for joining us. So I would like to open the floor up to my fellow commissioners. First, I want to open the floor to my fellow commissioner, Charlie Nesbitt, since this is his home turf. Charlie, do you want to speak?
Well, I just to welcome all that have chosen to participate today. Yes, I am a Western New Yorker, so I'm especially tuned in to some of the comments that we'll be hearing today. It's so important that we have participation from all parts of the state and from all different kinds of communities that exist in our very diverse state. So thank you again. I look forward to hearing what you all have to say.
Thank you, Charlie. Commissioner Stevens, Commissioner Fraser, would you like to speak?
I'd just like to echo Commissioner Nesbitt's comments. I mean, he is a native Western New Yorker. I spent probably the 4 best years of my life in Ithaca, New York, and I sent my 3 children to college in Geneva, New York. So I have a wealth of experience in the Finger Lakes, and certainly will find the comments of the Finger Lake area as well as the Western New York area very, very interesting. Thank you, and thank you to everybody that's involved.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Fraser.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for taking your time to do this. We are serious about your input. We need to hear it from you. This is not an academic exercise, nor is it a partisan exercise. So your voice is absolutely essential, and we are grateful for your contributing your time, and we're listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. So with that, Miranda, could we get started, please? Who is our first person testifying today?
Yes. PJ Wendell, you'll be invited to speak. Just accept.
Hi, PJ. How are you? Thank you for joining
David,
us.
So much. Thank you, Commissioner Stevens, Fraser, and Nesbitt for this time to speak to you. As told, my name is PJ Wendell. I'm currently the county executive for Chautauqua County. We are the westernmost county of New York State. I was told the state were tipped on its side. We are the tip of the triangle. We're the entry point of the great Empire State. And with that said, we have a lot of uniqueness here. My phrase lately as county executive has been, we're uniquely qualified. We border Pennsylvania on 2 sides. We have an urban area to our west in Erie and a southern rural community in Warren County to the south. But the reason I'm speaking today is the connectivity and the contiguous borders of Chautauqua County, Cattaraugus, and as we go across the southern tier. As you know, Commissioner Stevens had spoke about the Finger Lakes, a great wine producing area with vineyards and ample agribusiness. Well, there too, Chautauqua County is linked with agribusiness and our wineries and our grape vineyards. The interesting piece is, for a time, we were linked with Buffalo and Congressman Higgins' district. The challenge was we faced more of an economic agribusiness and agricultural and tourism industry as compared to a large urban area such as, Buffalo and Erie County. One of the things that I'm strong about is our relationships to rural communities. Chautauqua County is the largest of the current district held by Congressman Reed. And it brings a lot of uniqueness. As I've said before, we do have industry, long-term industry. We also have tourism. We have Great Lakes and a beautiful area to engage in outdoor activities. We are a 4 seasons county. Any of the 4 seasons, you can enjoy activities here throughout the county. And our tourism is, actually our economy is heavily reliant on tourism. But speaking, our connections, with the district are more across the rural counties and southern tier counties as compared to Buffalo. Unfortunately, we've seen even in the COVID virus, we are linked in the regional economic development groups with Erie County. So as Chautauqua County, Cattaraugus, and Allegheny were faced in the COVID times, the crisis hadn't hit us yet. And our numbers were skewed because of the large urban setting of Buffalo and Erie County. So again, even in the midst of a health crisis, we really weren't linked with Buffalo and Erie County. Likewise, in economics and agriculture, we are uniquely linked with the southern tier. Ways to improve, I feel, are growing what I would consider maybe the belly of Chautauqua County being our furthest point, but moving up into, some of the counties as Genesee and Wyoming that have more of a rural setting and a rural continuity that would our federal representatives would be able to provide distinct support for and understand this area as such. I again, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate everybody today and allowing me the time to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Appreciate you joining us. Talib Abdullah, how are you today? You are on mute, Toledo.
I am fine. Thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'd like to thank the Independent Redistricting Commission for organizing the series of public hearings on the upcoming redistricting cycle. I'm Talib Abdullah. I'm the Executive Director of Access of Western New York and Arab American Community Center for Economics and Social Services. Access is a proud member of the New York Immigration Coalition's Mapping Our Future Coalition. And Mapping Our Future is a statewide coalition of advocates dedicated to mobilizing the grassroots to get involved in redistricting and advocating for a fair process and fair maps. And we understand that fair districts are the foundation for fair representation. The opportunity to draw the fair districts only comes every 10 years, and there are no do-overs. And if we don't get this right, our communities have to live with the consequences over the next decade. But a good redistricting process can remedy that. Well-drawn districts that keep communities in mind together can protect the New York immigrants and communities of color, allowing challengers to have a fair shot at winning elections and energize civic engagement. It will finally allow for our community's needs to be prioritized by our elected officials, leading to better policy and budget outcomes. These public hearings are a promising start, but I urge the IRC to consider the entire redistricting process to be a public one. And at minimum, this should include an adequate introduction of the commission's members to the public every 10 years, open and clear communication from the commission to the public. And just having the information on the website would say is not enough. There should be a public announcements, mailings, and or collaborations with, say, community-based organizations to ensure transparency. There should be community events. As we all know, many people do not know what redistricting means, but yet it will impact them. There should be community events, regular updates, and open meetings. There should be a concerted effort to educate the public about this. Identifying the public's needs and addressing them, accessibility to those voting locations and to maintain proximity to those locations. Community conversations about coming into office, community conversations related to the grouping of communities and how the outcome of redistricting, if there will be one, can be beneficial to those impacted. Once you've all made a decision, I think mailers should be mailed to every New Yorker outlining the previous and the new redistricting lines drawn by the commission. In closing, I appreciate this opportunity, look forward to more sessions, and fair districts are the foundation for fair representations. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining us.
My pleasure.
Robert Raro, sorry if I slaughtered that. How are you today?
It's actually Pecoraro, and it means
Okay.
shepherd. And I hope I'm able to shepherd people here in North Tonawanda. I'm an elected representative. I'm actually running for mayor in North Tonawanda, and I just want to let the commissioners know that I served 30 years in the Air Force, lived 14 different places, and there's no better quality of life than we have in Western New York. And so when it came to the time to finally retire from the military, there was no question that we were going to move back to North Tonawanda and begin a new life. And I will tell you that the challenges we have here are basically brought forth between the counties of Erie and Niagara. We're the Twin Cities, Tonawanda and Erie County, North Tonawanda and Niagara County. And it just seems to me that in a city level, I would like my representatives to be from at least North Tonawanda, representing North Tonawanda, and not have it split up between Niagara County and Erie County on the state and assembly levels. For instance, I'm the chairman of the Niagara Community Action Program, and you know what action programs do. They're help the disadvantaged to get them a step up and out of poverty and to move forward with that. And we would prefer to be associated just with Niagara County. So if you can't at least keep the representation in North Tonawanda, I implore you to keep it with overall with Niagara County when you redraw the districting overall. And I appreciate the hard work that you have ahead of you, and I appreciate you listening to my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your service, Robert. And I will tell my quarter Italian wife that she should be ashamed of me. But I appreciate you joining us. John Barber, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Thank you to all of you for hosting this today and for listening. I live in Chautauqua County, actually in Fraser, New York is where I reside, and I work in Jamestown, New York. So, and I serve at a youth serving organization, providing a variety of services. But then I also in the town of Carroll, which is the town of Fraser, I also serve as a town councilman. And so this issue today of the redistricting is quite personal. I'm actually pretty much my whole life a New York State resident. In fact, a Chautauqua County resident. I spent 3 years away just while I attended my master's degree programming. So I've lived in the county pretty much all my life. And I know from even just yesterday at a town council meeting that our local town often feels as if when things come through New York State that sometimes the representation isn't there, and that sometimes we're actually forced to make decisions about things that we actually haven't necessarily felt represented when it comes our way. And actually, when I reflect even on my years in New York State, I actually can look at decades where our executive leadership and our senatorial leadership doesn't actually reflect some of the general sentiments of the population in the district 20 in the 23rd district where we live. And so I know there'll be a challenge in redistricting, because I know that census data always presents the challenge of having to figure that out. But it's so important that we consider the rights of people and their representation, that we make a distinct effort to make sure that all people living across our state have an opportunity to be represented. And I echo, I heard PJ Wendell's concern. I work for an organization that actually was closed during COVID, despite the fact that we had low rates. The reason why is we were linked with urban areas right in our region. And so with that, I had people that worked for me that couldn't return to work. We had people that were needing programming, but they couldn't come to programming. And it had a lot to do with what we were linked with. Now imagine that in terms of representation. And this is representation for the next 10 years. And so my urge to you is that as we look at representation, that we make sure that isn't something that affects residents and especially the 23rd district in that same way, that they fail to have any representation for 10 years. And just as a final note, in terms of as you do continue to go along, redistricting always is something that comes with all sorts of sense of who is saying what and who's directing what. And my encouragement to you actually is with candor, even with the deliberations as they're done, that just like we're meeting now, actually the deliberations happen live with actual sentiments so that everybody's intent as they draw lines can be known. Thank you for your time. Appreciate your efforts. Have a great day.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate you joining us. Assemblyman Goodell, how are you today? Thank you for joining us. You are on mute. I believe, Miranda, correct me if I'm wrong, that the way to unmute is *9.
*6. Assemblyman
Star
Griffin,
6.
if you press *6, but I'll invite you to unmute as well. I'll invite the next speaker and then maybe
Okay.
in the meantime.
Hit *6, Assemblyman. You also might be on. You're on mute with us on the Zoom. So. All right, if you're able to unmute yourself, Assemblyman, just jump in and say you're here, and then we'll have you go next. Tom Casey, thank you for joining the Redistricting Commission. If you want to unmute Tom and start your video. Tom, can you hear us? Because we cannot hear you.
I'll invite the next person and then hopefully
Okay.
Tom can get his issues sorted as well. Great.
Assemblyman Johns, how are you today? You're on mute. Miranda, are we having, is there some kind of security?
Not that
Yeah,
I'm
what-
aware of, but I'll look
Okay.
into it, but we've been fine. So let me look into it. Sorry.
How is it
Oh,
now? Is that
Yes,
better?
okay. Hi, Assemblyman. We can hear you. Yes.
Okay, good. Well, listen, sorry if you can hear me okay. I'm sorry I've started on a bad start there.
No worries.
Listen, I'm former Assemblyman Mark Johns. I represented the 135th Assembly District, which is Webster, where I lived, Penfield, Perrington, and East Rochester. That district is probably close to 138,000, so I realize that the obvious redistricting will get rid of East Rochester and put it out with the Pittsford district. The core of this district for decades has been Webster, Penfield, Perrington. But I also know the districts are gerrymandered to protect the incumbent from the majority party. And the incumbent, she is from Long Island, but she lived in Penfield for like 8 years and then bought a house in Perrington 2 months before the election. So I think people kind of see that there's going to be a split there. Webster, Penfield, Perrington are not going to stay together. My pitch is to make sure that at least Webster and Penfield stay together. And for a number of reasons, going way back to 1840, Webster and Penfield were the same town. They split apart back in 1840. All of the northern part of Penfield is in the Webster School District. People in Penfield, a lot of them believe they actually live in Webster. Webster School District, Webster zip code. They are two different towns, but they're one community. You really don't know where one starts and one ends. And the reason why I think these towns should be together, because we have communities of interest. There's nothing more intertwined than Webster and Penfield together. As I said, I sold my house in May. Right now I'm living with my brother, but he's moving at the end of the year. So I got to pick a place to go, and Penfield sounds as good as anything else. But the reality is, if you take a look at what the numbers were back in the 2016 election, they looked a lot different in 2020. The top of the ticket changed a lot of people's voting habits. They'll be going back in 22 and looking for something a little bit different. So my ask of you is that when you do the districts, chances are Perrington's not going to be in with Webster and Penfield, but Webster and Penfield could easily be put into, let's say, northern Wayne County. There's a lot of towns there, Ontario, Williamson, Sodus, Walworth, and Gananda. Those areas are very similar to Webster and Penfield. And if they're going to start breaking towns down, I would suggest that at least the northern and eastern part of Penfield be kept in with Webster and northern Wayne County, because they are communities of interest. They are very similar. And I appreciate you guys giving me an opportunity to say hello and pitch Webster and Penfield staying together in the upcoming redistricting.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Appreciate you joining us. We are joined by Commissioner Jean Banger. Commissioner, I don't know if you want to say hello. Yeah.
Hello. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Jean. Tom Casey, how are you today? Thank you for joining us.
I have unmuted. Do you have me?
Yes, we have you.
Okay. I have run in the district I now live in, which is Southern Erie County. It goes through Wyoming into Livingston and then into Canandaigua. More recently, it was given a little extension up into Monroe County. My request is, this district is 100 miles long, depending on whether it's the federal or the state, that it be reduced in length. When you have a challenger like me running, I'm at a tremendous disadvantage to have to cover 100 miles from one end, going through 4 counties. The second thing I'd like to ask is that Mount Morris not be cut out of the district. It was mind-boggling to me in running to find a little sliver coming up from Cattaraugus County to take out Mount Morris, which I can only presume is because it's Italian farmers, Democrats in a Republican district. The gerrymandering was gross, to say the least. So I'm very concerned about the present bill. I don't know if anything can be changed. The fact that it's at least 8 and possibly 10 legislators does not give me much hope. The fact that its language says we will respect the district cores creates infinite wiggle room. So I am hoping and asking that the commissioners can have the courage to be independent enough to really do redistricting. That this particular bill was sponsored by Silver and Selkos, both convicted felons, spent time in jail, and based on my past running, does not give me a lot of hope. So I hope the past statements, which I was impressed by each one of them with their sincerity, I hope those statements are respected. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate you joining us. Assemblyman Goodell, do we have you now?
I certainly hope so.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for sharing my comments. As you mentioned, I'm the Assemblyman. I represent all of Chautauqua County, the westernmost county. About 20 or 30 years ago, I was also the county executive for the same county. I'm not too worried about my own district since I'm bordered on the west and on the south by Pennsylvania and on the north by Lake Erie. So to the extent you need to add population, unless you're moving me closer to the capital of Pennsylvania, I'll be picking up some towns in Cattaraugus County. My biggest concern, of course, relates to our congressional district. Historically, our congressional district has gone along the southern border of New York State, Cattaraugus County, Allegheny County, Steuben, and along that line. My uncle was a congressman elected in 1956, and that was a congressional district. So historically, we've been in that configuration. There was a 10-year period where we were put in with Buffalo, and while we had some fine representation with Jack Quinn and with Brian Higgins, the interests in the were significantly different. It was not really a great mix. In addition to the historic, from an economic perspective, those southern counties share much of the same ideas. We've been in a tri-county tourism promotion program for decades with Cattaraugus and Allegheny. Agriculture is a dominant factor all across that southern tier. Small manufacturing, metal benders, again, a dominant industry. We even had, for many years, the Private Industry Council, now the Workforce Development Centers. Those were on a tri-county basis as well. Our school districts actually cross county boundaries. So Pine Valley, for example, includes Chautauqua and Cattaraugus County, and that's not unusual. Our health care is also on a regional basis. Brooks Hospital in Dunkirk is affiliated with a hospital group that also runs Olean in Cattaraugus County. And our news media crosses from Chautauqua into Cattaraugus and to a lesser extent Allegheny. So to the extent it's possible, I would urge the commission to keep our congressional district with Chautauqua County, with Cattaraugus County, Allegheny, Steuben, and continuing on toward Corning and Elmira. It's ironic, but our interests economically, historically, and then almost every level is more similar to Elmira, which is about a 2.5-hour drive, than it is with Buffalo. And so that is my pitch, and I hope you'll carefully consider it. And again, thank you for your patience as I try to figure out the technology to join you today.
Thank you, Assemblyman. I think this is the story of our age, but we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye. We have next Is it John? I'm sorry. You have,
I think the name we have registered is John Coppola.
yeah, John Kopelak. How are you? You are on mute, John.
Okay, did I get it?
Oh, yes, we can hear you. Yes. Hi, John.
Excellent, wonderful. When does my clock start here?
Whenever you're ready. John.
Can I give you a preface before that? I just want to say that I was closed out of the Tuesday meeting 3 times and registered in this one. Okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry about that, John.
Yeah, I know, me too, but I guess I'm going to be allowed to speak.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we can start our clock, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Listen, I am a graduate of the University of Buffalo and Buffalo State College, but I do live in Greater Binghamton, New York. We are the largest county in the southern tier with a population of 201,000. We've always been heavily gerrymandered. This is the birthplace of IBM by Thomas J. Watson, who invented the modern computer. Ed Link, who invented the modern simulator. We have one of the 4 Sunny Centers. It's very prestigious. We have one of the oldest community colleges in the nation. Since World War II, we've been heavily gerrymandered. At one point, we were in 3 different congressional districts. That was Walsh, Bowler, and Hinchy. And then we were down to 2. Now we're in 1, which goes north-south. Ours extends over 100 miles away too, which gives us almost 0 influence. Our congressional person lost the election in this county by 14,000 votes. That's how much we fit in. Next door, we have Tioga County, which is a bedroom community, which shares 3 of our largest school districts, Vestal, Main Emerald, and Union Endicott. Also, our people go to gamble there. It's a bedroom community. Just on top of Tioga is Tompkins County, home of Ithaca College, and Tompkins Cortland. We are all in the same sports leagues, the I-8 Interscholastic Athletic Conference, the Southern Athletic Conference. We're all in Section 4. There's a tremendous amount of collegians going back and forth. Next to Ithaca is is Cortland County, home of what we used to be known as Cortland State, SUNY Cortland. Tremendous amount of our kids go to Cortland. I just want to say there are 4 counties are concentric and contiguous. And if you're going to build a new congressional district, maybe instead of sliding us, you should consider that the basis of a new county. Here's the map right here. Here's Onondaga, Broome, and Tompkins. They're all, their influence is all chopped up and gerrymandered away. I want to share one more thing. The myth of red upstate. Democrats have won upstate New York every year, every presidential election since 1992, except 2016. So when people whine, oh, we're red, no, we're not. You know, look at the figures. They're on Wikipedia. They were certified in June. Really, I do appreciate your consideration. I spoke fast. I'm only 70 years old. I've never been in a district that was fair. And I'm done. 15 seconds. Thanks for having me. I do love, listen, I have 10 seconds. All of New York State is God's gift. It's beautiful. I love Western New York, upstate, Finger Lakes, Great Lakes. They're all wonderful, and you are too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Really appreciate you joining us.
Excellent.
Robert Lynch, how are you today? Thank you for joining us.
I am doing fine today. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate. Good afternoon. I'm Robert Lynch of 175 Gray Road, Town of Enfield, Tompkins County. I'm a council person on the Enfield Town Board. 3 days ago, as your commission convened its hearing on redistricting for the southern tier in central New York, I submitted written comments urging both that you retain all of my county, Tompkins County, within a single congressional district, but also that you consider severing our county from its current ties with the western southern tier and link it with more urbanized communities encompassing Binghamton or alternately Syracuse. I hold firm to that recommendation today. But today, in your receipt of testimony involving the Finger Lakes region, I urge you to preserve, if not enhance, keeping the Finger Lakes region intact, as I believe it stands as a community of interest for congressional representation. I've lived in the Finger Lakes all my life. I know how seamless the border is between the town of Ulysses, Tompkins County, and Covert, Seneca County. Likewise, between Lansing and Genoa, and between my Enfield and the town of Hector. While Tompkins may stand as the Finger Lakes outlier of sorts, our academic base making us disproportionately liberal and Democrat leaning, we still identify with the broader regional community. We hold far more in common with Seneca, Cayuga, and Ontario counties than we do with Cattaraugus and Allegheny. Apart from our county's somewhat unique professional and partisan focus, we in Tompkins County share with our Finger Lakes neighbors a vibrant tourist industry. Wineries and B&Bs abound. We, like our neighbors, have farms, but not too many factories. We share lakes that need preserving, a rural culture that represents and respects tradition, broadband connections that admittedly could be better. In redistricting, all things are not possible, of course. I realize that, as do you. I believe we in Tompkins County, on balance, would favor a more easterly and northerly congressional focus. But while I'd also hope you'd bind us to our Finger Lakes friends, I believe, more importantly, that these neighboring cohesive counties should themselves find representation as a community of one. And I'd extend that not just to Congress, but also to state Senate and Assembly. It is a cohesive community, the Finger Lakes community, and to the maximum extent possible, we should preserve that cohesiveness. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Margaret Meyer, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Margaret Meyer, and I am testifying on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Buffalo Niagara. The League is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. The issue we bring to your attention is regarding gerrymandered districts at the state and national levels. Gerrymandering disenfranchises New York's voters and puts incumbency and party above people. Voters become discouraged and silenced when electoral districts are controlled by one party. When there is little competition in elections and voters know that their vote will not matter, a hopelessness sets in. They do not feel heard and turn away from the privilege of voting. Too often, politicians cater to the people who will fund their campaigns and reelect them. When gerrymandered district candidates are not challenged, those elected have little incentive to be accountable to all the people they represent. They see no need for town halls or meeting with their constituents, except for PR events. They hide from or avoid some of their people when there are concerns. Subsequently, our democracy becomes compromised. There are many issues people in the Buffalo Niagara region experience: lack of affordable housing, transportation, low wages, poverty, pollution where the impoverished live, and many more. Poverty exists in every area of Buffalo Niagara. Politicians like to ignore this inconvenient fact. The poor have no voice since they have no money to influence and support political candidates. They know they will not be heard and do not vote. Like one man said, it's like we don't matter. Redistricting impacts every single issue our community faces. We are asking the Commission to create fair, nonpartisan, congressional and state electoral districts so that there will be a level playing field. Fair redistricting will provide an opportunity for candidates to really compete. The electorate needs to be able to vote for those who will truly listen and represent them. Please remember that fair redistricting really, really matters. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Margaret. Appreciate you joining us. David Gerritsen, how are you today? You're on mute, David. Hi, how are you?
Okay, hi.
All right, okay.
Sorry about that. Commissioners, thanks so much. I really appreciate you having these hearings. I'm Dave Garrison. I live in the 56th Senate District in Monroe County. I'm also the former chair of the Democratic Party here in Monroe County. However, I'm not here today to talk about political or partisan line drawing, just the opposite. Monroe County is a viable community of interest, and within it, Rochester even more so. Yet we currently have 6 Senate districts and 6 Assembly districts that crisscross the county, and 3 Senate districts and 3 Assembly districts that divide the city of Rochester. I'll remind you that Rochester is a troubled place with difficulties, the second worst level of childhood poverty in the nation. Our school district, by almost any measure, is the worst in New York State. 80% of students failing to meet basic proficiency standards. They're struggling and they need our help. District 56, where I live, is one of 3 that represents Rochester. And here it is. This island of nothing in the middle, that's not there by accident. Let's take a closer look. Here it is. It's a neighborhood called the 19th Ward and the South Wedge, and these were removed in the last redistricting because these voters did not vote for the incumbent repeatedly. Oh, you'll notice there's a little spoon-shaped area. That's what the incumbent wanted to keep, the University of Rochester. So what became of those voters? Well, here they are, same geography. They're now in District 61. 61. Let's look at District 61. Here's the Rochester portion, quite small geographically compared to what I just showed you. 70 miles away is the other end of the district. This red dot is the district office, 68 miles from Rochester. Right here, that's Canada, only 9 miles away from the district office. These are 2 distinct areas that are way different, have rural farmland in between. Different newscasts are watched, different newspapers are read. Hey, we don't even eat the same food. This is what they eat in Buffalo. It's called a beef on weck. This is what we eat here in Rochester. It's called a white hot. You can't get a white hot at Ted's, and you can't get a beef on weck on Genesee Street in Rochester. This is, and hey, I didn't come here to talk about food. I'm talking about 2 very different places, unfortunately combined into one district. Commissioners, we need a compact district. We need someone to care about the children and parents in the Rochester City School District. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. And I look forward to our in-person hearing in Rochester in the fall because I've always wanted to have a garbage plate. So that's on my.
Let me just tell you, when you get your garbage plate, get white hots on it.
Okay, I will keep that in mind. Dennis Smith, how are you today? Thank you for joining the commission.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. And how am I supposed to follow that presentation? Dennis Smith, I'm unlike many of the presenters, I'm not an elected official or a member of any civic organization. I'm just a husband and father, raising my family, working hard to build a life here. I'm in the town of Williamson, New York, which is in the northwest corner of Wayne County along Lake Ontario. Williamson and these surrounding towns, they are known locally here as the greater Rochester area in Western New York, but we've long been included in the congressional district that includes Syracuse under New York 24. Around here, we call that Central New York. I believe that as these new district lines are drawn by the commission, I hope that they would align the areas where people live with the geographic regions, in my case, greater Rochester area. Williamson's a small town. We bought our first home here almost 20 years ago. There were 6,600 people here. 2 decades later, that number's grown by 100 people. We're not a make or break block of voters for any candidate, and yet the lines of our current congressional district have all the hallmarks of good old-fashioned partisan gerrymandering, as many of the other presenters have said today. That's all but guaranteed one-party control of a vast rural swath of this region that I get lumped into. This part of New York isn't hard to figure out. Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, each city has its own culture, its own suburbs, and yes, even places where I live where they call them the boonies. We're part of Rochester's boonies. But sticking to that geography, it would take me 35 minutes to drive every day to Henrietta as I do for work. My wife works in the city. I work in the city. We grew up in the city of Rochester. But it would take me more than an hour to get out to Syracuse, where New York 24 is really seated and the representation comes. Understanding the demographics and the cultures of Syracuse and Rochester and Buffalo, and looking at these different geographic regions, it makes no sense how these lines are drawn in such a way to have dozens of towns like Ontario, Palmyra, Williamson, all included with a district that's centered around a city that's more than an hour away, rather than the one that's a few minutes down the road where we all work and play. Candidates in New York 24 today do not genuinely represent me or my family or my interests. And that's not purely a political opinion. We're not constituents for anyone in central New York. They're not coming up here to campaign and earn our votes. They're not driving an hour north to see us and have town halls. And it's got to end. The gerrymandering needs to come to a close. And I urge that we would find a way to establish voting lines and districts that properly represent the residents of those greater geographic areas where citizens live, where they raise their families, where they work and play. Essentially where we call home is where our representatives should be elected from. I am encouraged by the possibilities I see for this process now that it is in this commission's hands rather than in the hands of people who see us all as political chips in their ridiculous partisan games. I look forward to the results of your work, and I sincerely appreciate your time letting me speak today.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Appreciate you joining us. Dylan, how are you today?
I'm well. How are you, Commissioner?
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to begin today by thanking the esteemed committee for allowing me to testify. I've been watching each of the meetings, and this group has done a great service for the state by just listening to the communities that have been disenfranchised by districts drawn for partisan reasons and allowing them to discuss some of their historic issues. As you can tell, all of us here have a great number of thoughts, and I don't think any of us are really worried about where incumbents are located. But last year, after being party to a conversation where the lieutenant governor and soon-to-be governor promised that state senators in Monroe County would have their districts drawn favorably during this cycle, I understand more now than ever that this commission is vital to undo the partisan gerrymandering that both parties have perpetuated. Today, I want to focus in on the state Senate district and expand a little bit on what Dave said and the assembly districts in Rochester as they exist today. One point that I kind of want to add on about the 56th district where I currently live is not only is there a slice out for the University of Rochester, but the University of Rochester being a large campus that split both River and Medical Center actually is in two separate districts. It's about a 2 to 3 minute drive, but yet the representative for the Medical Center lives in the Buffalo region and the representative for the River campus lives in Northwest Rochester. As Dave mentioned, these have truly been surgically removed. And although I have a great deal of respect for every senator, and I know that Senator Rath does his best to get here as often as possible, it's hard to represent two incredibly distinct areas. But focusing on the state assembly, I just want to kind of mention what I am affectionately referring to as the lemur tail of the 138th. It's a little carve out that includes parts of the city of Rochester and truly is drawn in a tail-like fashion. And it's one of 3 districts that represent the city. What I want to point out is all 3 districts are actually anchored to a suburban area. No district for the assembly is fully representing part of Rochester. There's no compact Rochester district. And I think that really disenfranchises voters in the city to a degree that although the representatives do an excellent job of worrying about voters in the city, when you have an area with such concentrated poverty, it would be best for them to not also have to focus on suburban voters along with their urban voters. And finally, I'd just like to say, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with everyone here today. Our county is certainly a community of interest, and I hope that you all have an excellent time sifting through the census data. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Appreciate you joining us. Ms. Paul, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I'm excited about this opportunity to create fair voting districts and create changes that will energize voters in our community and encourage civic engagement. My name is Sabrina Paul, and I live in Williamson, New York, and I am a voter from Wayne County. We are represented by Brian Mantelo in Assembly District 130, Pamela Helming in State Senate District 54, and Congressman John Katko in District 24. Wayne County is a largely rural area of approximately 90,000 people. Fruit growing is a major industry, and we take pride in the beauty of our region. I'm a steering committee member of the Citizens Response Network of Wayne County. It is a nonpartisan, values-based good governance group that formed in 2017 as voters became concerned about what was going on in our government. Our goal is to encourage a strong, informed voting citizenry in Wayne County. In 2017, we tried to bring our concerns to our elected officials, but they seemed disinterested and oftentimes absent. We have hosted multiple public forums on issues of community concerns. These issues are things that our elected officials are reluctant to address. They often make decisions without consulting the wider local population or even considering the needs of all the people that they serve. We realize this complacency is fostered by the certainty that they can be easily reelected due to unfair districting lines that favor one political party over all others. This complacency allows our elected officials to favor the needs of some and diminish their service to many. So we recommend the following changes to our electoral district map. In Assembly District 130, we recommend that you include the cities of Auburn or Oswego rather than gerrymandering around them. It is clear from the maps that these small rural cities have been intentionally excluded from our district. For State Senate District 54, we recommend that you include the rural cities of Auburn or Ithaca and recommend that you take out Webster from this district. Webster is a suburb of Rochester and its interests merge well with Monroe County, not Wayne County. And finally, for the Congressional District 24, we recommend that you discard prior congressional district maps and start with a fresh slate. A good redistricting plan will allow voters to be heard and allow challengers to have a fair shot at winning elections. Much of the divisive nature of our politics is due to a loss of each citizen's faith in the power of their vote. Here in Wayne County, there's often only one party listed on a ballot, and this is not a healthy recipe for democracy. These changes would balance the party registrations more equitably and allow for competing positions to challenge our reluctant and productive leadership. These changes will energize voters in our community and encourage civic engagement. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. I appreciate you joining us. Constance Sterling Engmann, how are you today? Thank you for joining us. Constance?
Here I am. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for
Hi.
having me. Yes.
How are you?
Thank you for having me. My name is Connie Sterling Engmann, and I'm speaking on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Tompkins County. As a nonpartisan organization, it is extremely important that the League ensures that New York State and our county government identifies and listens to all communities of interest and not just the political parties as our state undertakes redistricting. Tompkins County is very diverse and includes urban, suburban, and rural communities with a geographic heart at the southern end of Cayuga Lake. The county's communities of interest include agriculture, health, agricultural and cultural, tourism, sustainability, and the environment, focused around Cayuga Lake, which unifies rather than divides the county. Our higher education institutions reach out to and link all these communities socially and economically. And through Cornell University, we even have a strong connection to New York City. Thus, we have little in common with Jamestown and the Western Southern Tier, which are in our current district, and far more with Cortland County, which is not in our district. At the state Senate level, communities of interest should be able to come together to speak with one voice. But Tompkins County is currently divided between 3 separate districts. At the local level, a community of interest in Tompkins County can be as small as an elementary school community, a group of non-English speaking refugees and the homeless population, or as large as the academics who live near the colleges and the farmers who live outside of the city. Every community should have a voice that can be heard. All deserve representation or an effective voice when that community is kept together as a whole and not divided amongst wards or seats. Before the redistricting that followed the 2010 census, Tompkins County's congressional district was described as Abraham Lincoln on a broomstick. That's how irregular it was. It is the League of Tompkins County's hope that the new independent commission will redistrict so as to allow everyone to have a voice at every level of government. And when the elections are over, those in power will represent all the people in their district and give voice to minority opinions when possible. That is what the League is all about, helping people vote, helping them know the issues, and helping them to have as clear as possible a picture of the candidates they can choose from, assessing which candidates will actually represent everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Appreciate you joining us. Susan Parker, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. And thank you for everyone, the Independent Redistricting Committee, giving citizens a chance to speak out. My name is Susan Parker. I am a resident of the village of Fredonia in the town of Pomfret in Chautauqua County. And that is part of the 23rd Congressional District, which primarily encompasses the New York Southern Tier. Based on my research and the work of others, particularly the work done by the national nonpartisan group DavesRedistricting.org, which you may be familiar with, but don't be put off by the name, Chautauqua County should be placed in a Western New York centered congressional district. Based on the best estimates of census numbers available, Chautauqua County belongs in a Western New York centric congressional district when districts are drawn to be proportional, compact, diverse with the most minority representation, and also based on competitive. Beyond these core criteria, Chautauqua County should be redistricted into Western New York for 4 reasons. Chautauqua County sits on Lake Erie and is sandwiched between the other Lake Erie counties of New York and Pennsylvania, both named Erie County. Chautauqua County is a keystone between the cities of Erie, Pennsylvania, and Cleveland, Ohio to the west, and Buffalo and Rochester to the east. Although the county is intersected by I-86, the Southern Tier Expressway has a rail service into the Southern Tier. The most consequential transportation and economic flows follow the New York State Thruway and the CSX and Norfolk Southern rail lines. In addition, all of the Chautauqua County Western New York services for the state, with a few minor exceptions, are located in Buffalo and treat Chautauqua County as part of Western New York. For example, the Empire State Western New York Economic Development, the Department of Transportation, the Department of Environmental Conservation, the Department of Ags and Markets, the state troopers have a Western New York and includes us, the Attorney General, the Office of Parks and Historic Preservation, the Department of Health, the Division of Human Rights, Department of Labor, the Division of Veteran Affairs, the New York Comptroller's Office, the Department of Financial Services, and a few others. Basically, we have been drawn into a Southern Tier district, District 23, which really doesn't represent Chautauqua County. So in sum, I urge the Redistricting Commission to include Chautauqua County in a Western New York centric rather than a Southern Tier oriented congressional district. Thank you very much for your time and your kind consideration.
Thank you so much, Susan. Appreciate you joining us.
Okay, thank you.
Lashonna, how are you today? Thank you for joining us.
I'm well, thank you for asking. So first I'd like to say good afternoon. My name is Lashonna Brooks. I have been a resident of the city of Rochester for the last 16 years. I am actually the former Board of Elections Commissioner for Monroe County. And most proudly, I am a member of the Rochester Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. Our organization was founded in 1913 by 22 amazing women who envisioned an organization that was committed to sisterhood, scholarship, and service. But most importantly, addressing social issues and social justice of our time. They were change agents. So I stand here on those women's shoulders, compelled to stand up for social issues that we see with redistricting. So for generations across this country, redistricting has been used to block out certain communities. So today we want to make sure that proper representation is provided as we come before you to talk about how those lines should look. We should make sure that every community is properly represented, because I think about my daughters that I'm raising here in Rochester, in a town that has no representation for people of color and issues that have plagued our community just feverishly. So that's why when I moved to Rochester, I worked very hard to start addressing these issues, but I understand how our representation matters. So when we talk about redistricting, the first thing that comes to mind for Rochester is racial gerrymandering. Like redlining has continuously stifled our community, racial gerrymandering is doing that for the city of Rochester. We have approximately over 200,000 residents. However, our lines are split literally between neighborhoods. Literally, lines are going directly down the middle of streets, which does not allow for neighbors to come together to advocate with one representative to address the particular needs of that neighborhood. The lines are ravishing our communities. I am asking this honorable body to not continue to allow precedent as such to continue. We're asking that this honorable body consider making Rochester into at least 2 districts. In the late but wonderful Assemblyman David Gant fought very hard to create what we know today as the 137th Assembly District. It has done wonders for this community in advocating for financing and starting to address some of the issues that we see today in the city of Rochester. So I'd like to thank this honorable body for this time to speak, and looking forward to what's to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Barbara Grosch, how are you today? Thank you for joining the commission.
Hi, thanks for sponsoring these wonderful hearings. My name is Barbara Grosch, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters of the Rochester metropolitan area. One of the big jobs that the League takes on is helping voters be informed, voters to know who represents them, to know what the issues are, to know how their representatives are acting. And I would like to just remind you that that's a very difficult thing for us to accomplish when districts are crazy and gerrymandered. So I'd like to share my screen for a minute so that I can tell some stories about how that doesn't always work out. All right, so let's see. Yes, oops. All right, so hopefully you're seeing this map, which shows what the congressional districts looked like between 2012 and 2002 and 2012. So notice that Rochester was right here in the middle as part of the 28th district, and which then crept like a daddy long leg along the top of Lake Ontario and then down into urban Buffalo. So at that point in time, I lived in the southern suburbs of Rochester. So although I identified completely with the Rochester metro area, if I were to just read the newspapers or follow the local news, I would have thought that Louise Slaughter represented me. She did a great job of representing Rochester, but she did not represent me. I was represented by a series of other people, most of whom's names I had trouble remembering because I never heard anything about them. So I truly was not a well-informed voter. I did not know how I was being represented in Congress. We also find similar problems at the local level. I'm going to mention District 138, which has been mentioned by previous speakers. I like the description of the lemur tail. I thought of it as a question mark that swallowed a huge brick. This district is just so bizarre that there's no way people know what district they're in. And you could know someone be good friends with them, know where they live, and you would not be able to guess whether they lived in this district. So it's hard for them to follow the news. And it's when we organize a debate for the candidates, it's hard for us to publicize because unless people can remember 138, they wouldn't notice any news about a debate. Compare that with a better district like 135, where we could just send out news via 4 suburban public libraries, and everyone who saw that news would know they were in that district. So we'd like you to remember how hard it is to be an informed voter when you draw these lines. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Appreciate you joining us. Judith Sternberg, how are you today? Thank you for joining the commission.
Oh, I'm very well, thank you. And thank you to all the commissioners for this opportunity to give input. My name is Judy Sternberg and I reside in Rochester. I'm also a member of the League of Women Voters of the Rochester metro area, but I'm speaking only as an individual today on behalf of my community of interest, the city and residents of Rochester. I'm speaking to the need for Rochester to be fairly represented in the New York State Legislature, particularly the state Senate. Rochester is the 3rd largest city in the state, with a population of about 205,000 residents. Racial demographics from 2010 showed a population makeup of roughly 43% white, 41% Black, and 16% Hispanic Latino. Current Board of Elections statistics on Rochester's registered voters show about 66% are enrolled as Democrats, about 20% with no party enrollment, and less than 10% as Republicans. In a 2020 report from the Rochester Monroe Anti-Poverty Initiative, Rochester, when compared to similarly sized cities, ranks #1 in the nation in overall poverty, childhood poverty, and extreme poverty. And when compared to the nation's 75 largest metro areas, it ranks #3 in overall poverty. So how is Rochester represented in our state Senate? It is sliced up into 3 districts where its voters' voices are diluted in regions that look nothing like it. For decades, it has been represented by Republican state senators, and only in 2020 did 2 of those districts elect Democrats. And how has this worked for Rochester? Compared to its sister cities of Syracuse and Buffalo, Rochester lags behind in funding from the state aid and incentive for municipalities, receiving respectively only 68% and 85% of their per capita funding. Rochester is a wonderful place, but it has serious problems and needs strong advocates in the state legislature. It needs elected officials who will represent Rochester with a sense of urgency and priority. It needs to be kept more intact and have its voice heard loud and clear. Again, I thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much, Judy. Appreciate you joining us. Kevin Peterson, how are you today? Thank you for joining the commission.
Good,
Mr.
thank
Mayor.
you. Thank you, David, for having me. And thank you, commissioners, for listening. So I should be able to give you back at least a minute or so of these 3 minutes because I don't have a well-rehearsed narrative like some of the others today. I've certainly learned a lot listening, and I have no illusions that this is some easy task to do. As the mayor of a village of 15,300 people, we sit in 2 towns. And the way I look at the way we're a district in some cases, such as New York State Senate and the congressional district, my village is split by Route 78, Transit Road, east and west, depending upon which town you're in. And I just think that it would be more beneficial since at a village level, I don't really care if it's Republican or Democrat that I have to work with. I have to work with both parties. It's immaterial to me, really. My board is made up of both parties. I don't really care when I go to select people to run on my party with my local party, what their Republican or Democrat background is. At this level, it's really coming together and working together. So it just would be easier, I believe, that if I was dealing in, say, in the case of our New York State Senate, that I'm not dealing with two different individuals, depending upon which side of the road we are living at. So again, I don't think this is an easy process. I just would hope that you could take each community, each village as an example and put it with one particular district and not have it split. That's all I have today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Tyrell Ford, how are you? Thank you for joining the commission.
Thank you. I'm doing good. How are you doing today? My name is Tyrell Ford. I'm with Push Buffalo, and Push Buffalo is a member of New York Immigration Coalition's Mapping Our Future Coalition. The opportunity to draw fair districts only comes every 10 years, and there are no do-overs. We don't get this right, our communities have to live with the consequences for the next decade. Being in Buffalo over the last 10 years has shown me that the lack of resources in our city schools and culminated at the height of the pandemic due to lack of funding from the governor and our council members in the legislative districts that houses Buffalo. They mostly advocate for richer, wealthier school districts to get more money than our Buffalo public schools. With this, we were forced to wait months for our children to get the needed electronics, tablets, iPads, to get the education they need at the height of the pandemic. It took months before we were able to get those for our kids and kids in our community. They would already have them if we would have just had the resources handed down through the budgeting process. This is a huge example of how the Black and brown communities are given the scraps during the redistricting process that leave our kids and our future generations behind, compared to suburban schools that garner top dollars as their community paid higher taxes, thus getting more state funding. They also have access to fill out the census when many of our neighbors couldn't due to the lack of access to technology and the education around filling out the census. But a good redistricting process can remedy that. Well-drawn districts that keep communities like mine together can protect New York immigrants, communities of color, allow challengers to have a fair shot at winning elections, energize civic engagement. It will finally allow for many community needs to be prioritized by elected leaders, leading better policy and budget outcomes. These public hearings are a promising start. I urge the commission to consider the entire redistricting process to the public to be a public one. At a minimum, this must include community input on drawn lines by trusting our coalitions to start mapping what fair lines look like in Western New York. We need fair and equitable lines drawn that finally give us resources we need to strive. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Judith Hunter, how are you? Thank you for joining the commission.
Hi, thank you for having me. Can you hear me? Okay, I come here today wearing two hats, and the first is as the Democratic Chair of Livingston County. As you saw on that map that was displayed a couple of minutes ago, we are directly south of Monroe County. And yet we are continually put in congressional and state Senate districts that align us with Erie County. I'm sorry, but Erie County is a place we don't think about except on Sunday afternoons in the fall. Go Bills. But other than that, we have all of our shopping, all of our media, all of our medical care. We're connected by interstate right up to Rochester, and that is where we go. And yet we not only are grouped in districts with Erie County, just given the way demographics work, the successful candidates are always from Erie County, and they hardly ever show up in Livingston County. We are ignored, and that is a big problem. My second hat is as the chair of the New York Democratic Rural Conference, representing all of the small counties. And we really suffer frequently from being lumped into districts that are written off, non-competitive districts. And that is absolutely deadening to the small d democratic process. Think of how dispiriting it is for someone who wants to serve their community to find that, well, no, you can't run. You're in the wrong party. You could never get elected. That's a huge problem for us. And it also leads to a lack of accountability. I really want to stress that. I have the misfortune of living in New York 27 congressional district. And before the lines were redrawn, that was New York 26. Our Congress people have been a succession of scandals. We have had embarrassment after embarrassment in our district, and that's because our representatives don't feel accountable. They don't have a competitive race coming up every 2 years, and so they feel they can ignore large swaths of the district. They feel they can ignore the rules that apply to everyone else. And the people who suffer are the people who live in those districts that are written off. This is a huge problem and one that I hope that you'll be able to address. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. Go Bills.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate you joining us. Robert Dando, how are you? Thank you for joining the commission. Dando, sorry. Rob, you are on mute.
Sorry.
No worries. Thank you for joining us.
Okay. Hi, my name's Robert Dando. I live in the town of Pompert in Chautauqua County. I'm also the vice chair for the Chautauqua area of the Working Families Party, which includes Allegheny, Cattaraugus, and Chautauqua counties. Although the views I am expressing today are basically my personal views. First off, I feel that Chautauqua County should not be divided, as I've seen in some plans that have been proposed for redistricting. I feel this would lead to me, this is gerrymandering, as the northeast corner of our county tends to lean towards the Democratic Party. And by adding this section of Chautauqua County would be offsetting the rural sections in between Dunkirk and Buffalo. And just, basically just, leaning towards one party. I also feel that because of the east-west or north-south divide that exists in the county, that putting the northern part into the county is going to definitely increase the division that exists between the mindset of the people. Putting us into Wizard County would, I think, destroy the feeling that we should be connected to the rest of the county. Okay, secondly, because of the rural similarities of Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, and Allegheny counties, I feel that they should be placed in the same district in both the state Senate, which they are now, and in Congress. I feel that it's highly probable that the 23rd district will be the congressional district that will be divided up in the recycling cycle. And I feel it should be, because the district, as it's presently drawn up, is basically two distinct regions. You have the western region, western counties of the district, which are oriented to western New York, especially Buffalo and Rochester. And you have the eastern counties of the district, which are a part of the Finger Lakes. They actually are part of the Finger Lakes. The two sections have never really had a connection between them, except the fact that they're close to the Pennsylvania border and the I-86 corridor. I just feel because of the ruralness of these three counties that they should be together in whatever redistricting process will be done. So I strongly feel that the county should be kept together and place with Cattaraugus and Allegheny in any future plans. And because of its rural nature, it should be away from the urban areas of Buffalo and Niagara Falls. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. I appreciate you joining us. Legislator Baskin, thank you for joining the Redistricting Commission.
Thank you all. Good afternoon. My name is April Baskin. I'm the chairperson of the Erie County Legislature and legislator elected to represent Erie County District 2. I want to start off by thanking the members of the New York State Independent Redistricting Commission for scheduling public hearings. I appreciate this opportunity to offer testimony. At present, Erie County is represented by 2 congressional districts, the 26th and the 27th, which is proper since the population of Erie County, 219,000 as of the 2010 census, is greater than the maximum number comprising 1 congressional district. I am strongly encouraging the commission to draw the successor district to the current 26th district as close to its present iteration as the law will allow, since the current 26th district is the most ideal congressional district from a good government perspective in New York and arguably nationwide. The current lines of New York 26 meet the criteria that make a district fair and equitable and are often missing from partisan gerrymandered districts. These things include compactness, contiguity, the avoidance of pairing incumbents in new districts, preservation of core districts, and preservation of communities of interest. The current lines of New York 26 meet the criteria for compactness and contiguity. New York 26 is the most geographically compact district outside of New York City, and all areas of New York 26 are contiguous. And I am less concerned about where incumbent members of the House of Representatives live than I am ensuring preservation of a fair and publicly responsible district that represents the urban and first ring suburban core of Erie County and Niagara counties. I also want to state that the area that I would like to focus this testimony on is preservation of both the core of the current district and communities of interest. At present, New York 26 unites communities of interest in the most effective manner as any district in the state. It unites municipalities with substantial populations, including communities of color, the cities of Buffalo, Lackawanna, Niagara Falls, and the towns of Amherst and Cheektowaga. And it only divides municipalities in very minor ways to ensure the required population count was met. Additionally, the district is almost entirely urban and suburban and does not include any outer ring suburban areas or rural areas, which meets the needs and the values of the districts and makes sure that their community needs are aligned. As an elected official, I have made equity and representation the center of my priorities and agendas. I have centered discussion regarding the distribution of federal funding around the needs of historically disadvantaged communities. And I have ensured that people of color have been appointed to boards and commissions, making several of them the first non-white appointees in Erie County history. Simply put, the district as comprised today offers the best opportunity for the election of a candidate who can best represent the community in terms of policy, priorities, and identity. And it also represents one of the best opportunities in upstate New York to elect a person of color to Congress. Any attempt to divide the urban core of Erie County could negatively impact historically disadvantaged communities throughout our region. In closing, thank you.
Yes, thank you, legislator. I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We're waiting on one more person. Bob McGregor, if you want to join us. I see you in the attendees and you're invited to speak.
Bob McGregor, how are you? Thank you for joining the Redistricting Commission.
I'm terrific. How's everybody?
All right.
I'm just representing myself. This is a learning experience of seeing what this is all about. It appears to be fine the way it is, but I'm just being educated in the whole system. The government needs correction, and we're the government, the citizens. And it's up to us to take the reins and rein in our government, state, local, and federal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. I think this is a learning experience for all of us right now, so we appreciate you joining us. Miranda, do we have any additional people?
No, that's all for today.
All right, so commissioners, as we have done for our past regional hearings, I asked for 5 minutes just to take a pause and see if there are any additional people who join us. Any objections? All right, so at 3:37, I'm sorry, we'll reconvene. Adjourning. All right, there being none, I want to thank the people of Western New York and the Finger Lakes for joining us today. I thought it was incredibly helpful. I know that this is our final regional hearing. So I urge everyone who has been unable to make one of the regional hearings to come to our hearing this coming Sunday at 3 p.m. Again, as a reminder, we will be having the signups for those closed at 5 p.m. on Friday because our website will be down over the weekend. Our hearing for the entire state will be held on Facebook Live. But again, I just want to thank everyone who joined us today. This was incredibly helpful. I look forward to going on a culinary tour of both Buffalo and Rochester during our hopefully in-person hearings later this fall. Commissioners, would anyone like to speak on before we close? No? All right, well, thank you so much again to the people of New York, and we look forward to seeing everyone on Sunday. All right, have a good day, everyone.